I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Hope you're well. How are you doing? So as I record this, it's the first day of September. So one of my children is now back at school, and I always think of September of a new year. It feels more new yearish to me than the 1st of January, in fact. And maybe that's because I used to be a teacher and it was always a new school year. But if that's you, maybe you're starting to think about starting some of those things you've been pushing to the side over the summer, particularly things which are going to support your health and wellness during perimenopause. So if that is you, then yes, this is a really great opportunity, a great time to do that. Okay, on to this week's episode. Now, this week's I speak to Debs Wallbank. Now, Debs is a dedicated menopause warrior, raising awareness around menopause, around HRT, and also holistic therapies. Debs is now 49 and hit perimenopause over a decade ago now, but she wasn't diagnosed for 6 years. Deb's story has so many twists and turns which took her to her lowest point, but I'm so pleased to say that it's also been the making of her. Today, Debs is a menopause coach and she uses her unique combination of knowledge, experience and skills to help and empower others. In our conversation during this episode, Debs vulnerably shares her story, which I'm so grateful for, because by sharing these stories, we're not only removing the stigma of menopause, but we're also raising awareness of some really important issues, and particularly in Debs's case, when it comes to having knowledge and awareness about HRT. Because if she had had the correct information, the correct knowledge, the correct education around HRT, then her story might have taken a very different path. So without further ado, please welcome the absolutely wonderful Debs Wallbank. Today on the podcast, I am delighted to welcome Debs Wallbank here with me. Hi, Debs. It's very lovely to have you here on the podcast today.
Hi, Polly. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. So we crossed paths. We found each other, I think it was at social media. It always is with these things. And I heard a bit about your own personal perimenopause story. And I remember thinking, my goodness, you have got a real story to share because you have been on a journey with it. And now what I love is that you're using it for good, like so many of us do. So perhaps we could start with just hearing a little bit about you, and maybe then we can kind of move into talking about your perimenopause.
Hey, gosh, where do I start? Well, I'm 49, soon to be 50, and I'm currently living my best life, believe it or not. Best so far, that is. There's better to come, I know that. But for now, I feel probably in the best place I have for a long time, which sounds strange when you will hear about my menopause story, because menopause broke me. This is kind of my little saying to myself. It broke me, but it's also been the making of me. I come from a corporate background in senior-ish management positions, facilities management type of jobs where, you need about 10 different hats in a day and who knows what's going to come at you. It's a thankless job. It's a bit soul destroying. And I did that for over 20 years. How, I don't know now looking back, but at the time it seemed like that was what I was supposed to do. Like most of us, we don't think about alternative ways of working, right? We're so ingrained in society that, you get up at whatever stupid time in the morning, you go to work, you do your thing for 8 hours, you come home, have your dinner, and you go to bed. That's life, right? No, that really isn't. But I did this for a very long time. I was pretty successful in my career, but I always felt I was getting stuck. I couldn't understand why. And it's only since I've been out of that environment that I've realized I was becoming stuck because I don't like to follow the rules. I mean, I'm not a rebel, so to speak, but being stuck in that kind of environment where you have no leeway to kind of do your own thing. And I think differently to a lot of people. I'm an Aquarian, I'm very creative, I'm very independent. So my thoughts tend to not be aligned with many corporate businesses. And I couldn't express myself. So all this time, I thought I was loving this job, but it was really suffocating me in the end. And I have menopause to thank for not being in that environment anymore, which now looking back it's just so crazy to be saying that. But going through all of this, I have also been married. I have then since been divorced, which is part of my perimenopause story. I have had to relocate multiple times since then. I've always moved about, to be fair. We're not the family that has a home, so to speak. We are where we are, and that's fine. But I was forced into multiple relocations through perimenopause that weren't particularly enjoyable. However, got through them. I am a crazy cat lady. I have a cat. I actually share a house with my mum now. She just turned 70. And so we kind of look after each other, which is nice. I'm a huge foodie. I love photography. I love movies. I love rock music. I'm a huge rock chick. Love going to gigs and just letting loose.
I really resonate what you were saying about not fitting into that corporate role. And it's that, you sound like you were craving that freedom to express yourself in the way you want to, and the freedom to, be flexible. And I resonate with that so much. And I think so many people do. One of my top values I've discovered is freedom, because if I don't have that, then you feel really suffocated. And I think particularly at midlife, I think a lot of us realize that. And that's why so many of us leave these jobs which we've worked so hard to get to the top of, and then actually start something completely different. So yeah, it's really interesting hearing you say that. So let's dive in then to your perimenopause story. So you're 49 now. So when did it all begin? When did you start to notice changes happening?
Well, this is a difficult one because, like most women, up until this point in time, we didn't know what perimenopause was, right? Didn't even know the word existed. It was just menopause. That was it. My awareness of menopause up until then was it was for older women. It meant that, you slowed down a bit, you maybe put on some weight, and you weren't having periods anymore. That was as much as I knew. So it's hard for me to know when it actually kicked in for me, because there are so many symptoms that we're aware of now that I was experiencing, but I had no association with it being anything menopause related. But when I do work back through my timeline, I estimate I was 39 to 40 when things really started to change. Primarily mood. That was a huge one. But, I have had depression in the past, so I wrote it off to that. Weight gain, yes, inevitably, I'm still battling that. But I wrote that off to being married, having a sedentary job, and making big dinners for my husband. So there's always another reason that you can kind of use as the excuse, if you like, for all these things happening to you. If you don't know, you immediately think menopause. So I say about 39 because that's when I really noticed a difference in the relationship with my husband, with, like I say, my mood, the weight, and work. It really took its toll on me at work. I'd been through quite a journey with my husband as well, where I'd had to take much lower level jobs than I was used to because we relocated to Orkney, and there just isn't that opportunity for me up there. So I took whatever job kind of I could get. And then I'd been quite used to that, but we had to relocate again. And I couldn't get back into the high level jobs because I'd been out of it for so long. So I was still doing these, I mean, very worthwhile jobs, right? But for me, very basic. And found I was constantly late. I just couldn't get to work on time. I was making mistakes left, right, and center. I couldn't focus on things, jobs that I could have done standing on my head blindfolded not so long ago. Now I just felt like I was like 16. I'd just left school and it was my first job. I was just useless. And over time, I started to think, well, it's because the job's not challenging enough, right? It's not pushing me. So I'm bored. And if I'm bored, I don't make the effort. 4 job losses later, before it dawned on me that there must be something else going on here, because one of those jobs was back in a high level position. And it was essentially my dream job, or at least it was my dream job from before. I lasted a year in that job. How, I do not know. And, you know, if any of my previous employers are listening, I can only now apologize for the employee that I was. I mean, I was a rubbish employee. I realize that now.
So what was showing up for you? Was it kind of the brain fog, the cognition side of things?
Absolutely. It was like my brain just didn't work anymore. And I thought, I've got a very good brain, and I've always had a good brain. It's something that I've been very proud of my whole life. And it just didn't want to do what I wanted it to do. I couldn't understand it. It was embarrassing. I was like, how can I not do this job anymore? I'm letting people down. It was a previous boss that told me about the job. And it was like, how embarrassing is this for her to have recommended me? And now I can't do this thing that I've done for so many years. But on top of that, fatigue really started to kick in. So not only could I not get up in the morning, which turns out partly because I'm a night owl, and it's only recently that I've learned that as being a huge impact on why I didn't fit to the 9-to-5 working lifestyle, because it's not how my body works. But you have to go through a certain process to learn all these things anyway. But yeah, so I couldn't get up in time, couldn't get to work in time. And I was just tired the whole day at work. Wanted to just go home and sleep. And then some days I just thought, I'm going to sleep. I'm not even going to get up and go to work. I'm just going to lie and sleep because I'm so tired. And that was, in the end, what cost me these jobs, was the amount of time off I was having. Yes, I was making mistakes, and that would have probably been my downfall at some point. But it really became the mood and the fatigue. And the very last job that I had, corporate job, my manager and his manager came to see me at my house doing the whole HR thing, right? Which I've been through myself as a manager, and it's not pleasant. I knew what was coming, and they were ticking all the boxes, you know, can we do anything? Da, da, da. What is it that's actually stopping you coming to work, was the question. I didn't have an answer. I literally didn't know. All I could tell them, and this sounds so pathetic to an employer, I'm just really fatigued all the time. I mean, what employer is going to accept that, right? So I can't blame them for letting me go, because I would have done the same if it was my employee telling me that.
Had you been to a doctor?
No. Well, yes, for the mood, and it was just off to depression.
Yeah.
But I knew it was more than that, because this fatigue was crippling. I mean, I didn't want to get out of bed. It was that simple. Really, really awful. But the shame of having to sit there in front of my bosses and not have a reason why I was off work was awful.
It is. It's that shame, isn't it? It's a real horrible thing to feel, because it does make you just want to hide away. It damages any confidence you might have had left because you're just kind of it makes you kind of squirm and not want to face things. And all because you just had no idea what was going on.
Exactly.
So what happened then after that? So you lost that last job. Did you think you had to get to the bottom of it? What was causing it?
Well, I wasn't mentally in a state to really take it any further than just going to my GP. So I was signed off from that job, then lost it ultimately.
And what was your husband? What was your husband's sort of?
Well, we'd split up.
How was he reacting? Oh, so you split up. Okay, so you could have put it down to that as well. Yes.
Yeah, in between the 4 jobs in a row that I lost, and in between that, I then split up from my husband. So I had to move out of the house where we were staying because I couldn't afford it on my own. And I had to move back into the city where I was working because I had no car, and it was the only way I could then travel to this other job. So here I was stuck in the city, which I never wanted to be in the first place. No car, no job, no money, no nothing. And it was just like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? And I really didn't know. However, I had dabbled in network marketing for a few years on and off, just as a little side income. And in my little brain and my crazy world says, let's do this full time. Let's just do that. That's fine. I can do it from home. No problem at all. And I really thought it was for me, but turned out my mental state still wasn't enough to kind of push myself to work as much as you need to make a viable income from it. So this just compounded to my sort of feeling of failure, if you like, this uselessness of, I can't do anything, what's really happening to me? And it got to a point where I couldn't even afford to stay in this tiny flat that I was renting from a friend for a very low rent. I was just falling behind because I had no money. So I had to relocate again. This was now since my divorce. I moved 1, 2, 3, 4 times, each time downgrading significantly. And it got to a point where one of the lowest points ever, no disrespect to the person I was staying with, but I ended up living in a bedroom of someone else's house. And that just seemed such a different world to me. I've never done that. I've always been fortunate to have my own place, not necessarily bought, but my own space, and to not just to share with someone, but to share with a stranger and be confined to this one room. I don't know how I survived that, quite honestly, but I had no other choice. That's where I was. She had her own small business and used to walk dogs. She also struggled with mental health issues and couldn't do regular work. So she had a little dog walking business. And I thought, I like dogs. I can do that. Let's do that. Let's start up a dog walking business. No problem. And then it became a pet sitting business where I went to go and stay in people's houses. But I couldn't even do that effectively because I couldn't be bothered. I couldn't be bothered being around animals that I love. That's how low my mental state had gone.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you. So when did you start to notice, when did you know and realise that, okay, this is down to hormonal shifts, something which I don't know anything about? How did you discover that?
Yeah. So in living with mum in the first place that we had, so 2020, I went for some routine bloods for my underactive thyroid, and I was feeling tired and sluggish with everything else that was going on, and I thought, well, let's just double check that my thyroid's at least okay. And I talked it through with the GP, and I have to say, for the most part, my medical support has been great. I've been really lucky, mostly. Not entirely, but mostly. And the first thing he said to me was, after I told him all the story of everything that had gone on, you could be in early menopause. What? I'm only 46. I thought, really? Early menopause? No, surely not. That happens to people in their 50s and 60s, right? So he'd offered to do some blood tests, of which they did 2 sets of blood tests, which they're not always conclusive, and it's not necessarily a yes or a no, one way or the other. But he offered, I took them, and both times they came back to suggest I was highly indicative of being in perimenopause, as we now know it. I'm not emotionally attached to my uterus in any way, so it had no emotional effect on me that way. But what it did do was just give me some answers. It's like, oh my God, really? That's what's been happening to me for the last 6-7 years? Wow. And it's taken this long to find out. That was 6 or 7 years of pretty much hell. Didn't need to happen. And all those things that I went through didn't need to happen. I mean, I'm so glad all of them did now. I wouldn't be here right now doing this. But at the time, that's a lot of stress for a human being to go through unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So he immediately offered me HRT. And I'm just, if someone says, here, you have this blue pill, it'll make you feel better, I'll probably take it. Right? I'm just, yes, I just want to feel better. I don't really care what it is. Just help me. I was extremely low risk of anything from taking it. And now that HRT is so much safer for almost everyone, the risk was just not even worth talking about. So I thought, right, yes, give me the stuff. Just give me the stuff. Make me feel better. And I was given HRT, and I think, if I remember rightly, it was a combined patch at the time. And I don't know if you remember this, and I know we're having huge shortage issues at the moment, but there was another massive shortage in 2020. So I only had 1 round of these patches before I had none left, and I couldn't get any from anywhere. And they couldn't even get me an alternative at that point. So I had nothing. And this went on for months.
Did that initial patch make you feel better?
Well, I think so. I mean, it certainly got me up and moving and thinking about what I wanted to do with myself.
Okay, so it was starting to have an effect.
Yeah, but I didn't have it long enough to really appreciate that, you know? I think what really helped was just the knowing what it was, more than the short amount of treatment that I actually had. So it got to a point where I kept forgetting to chase the chemist, to chase the GP for alternatives, because for about 3 or 4 months, I was getting nowhere. And then it got to a point where I just forgot I was supposed to be on it altogether. So come December 2020, and this is the really pivotal moment for me. Christmas Eve. Christmas is my favorite time of the year, by the way. I just love it for giving. I love to give. And what better day to give is Christmas Day. And Christmas Eve is my day for prepping all the food. I would love to cook. It was a day from hell for me. Nothing was going right. I was grumpy. I had immense rage, like nothing I'd ever known before. And it got to a point where I had this huge argument with my mum on Christmas Eve. She went to bed about 8 o'clock at night. I stayed up. I had 2 or 3 cans of cider, I think, which is, for me, that's not a lot. I have quite a high tolerance for alcohol, so that would not normally have made me tipsy. I was absolutely gone on this small amount of alcohol, which is another thing of menopause you're not told about. And I just got so low, so miserable, that I decided I didn't want to live. I just had enough. I didn't know. I still wasn't fully working by this point. I was living with my mum at 46, which as I say now, I'm grateful for. But at the time, it just was all this shame and embarrassment of, I'm 46, and what do I have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. And what do I want to do about it? Absolutely nothing. I just wanted to hide under the duvet and not wake up. Now, I didn't want to actually end my life myself. That's not what was in my head. I just didn't want to be awake anymore.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you felt like that, but I can totally and utterly relate. And I hate to say it, but I just don't think that is uncommon with so many women who are experiencing perimenopause. We hear it time and time again. And it's no surprise that suicide rates in women are at their peak between the ages of 45 and 55, which is, perimenopause and menopause age.
Exactly.
And we hear, as I say, we hear it again and again. And it should never, ever, ever have to get to that point where we feel like we don't want to wake up, we don't want to be here, and I just, my heart just goes out to you and to anybody else who gets to that point, myself included. It's just the worst feeling where you feel like you have no value in this world, and you feel the world would be a better place without you. And, that is because our hormones, as we now know, are affecting our mood, our mental health, and how we're feeling. So what did you, from that point, how did you turn that around? Because the thing is, when we're in that place, it's very easy. And I'm talking from my own personal experience from this, you are so low that you feel like the victim, and you're in that victim mentality, and it's very, very hard once you're in that place to have the foresight to get yourself out of it. It takes quite a lot, unless there's someone to shake you. And it's almost like you've got to get so low. There is, was there a moment for you? There was that trigger, which is like, right, someone's got to change here, or was it somebody else? What was that moment?
Yeah, so obviously the Christmas Day, I had sobered up, obviously, but I stayed in my bed the whole day. We didn't even have Christmas Day, and we didn't have Boxing Day, and we didn't have the day after, because I didn't leave my room for like over 3 days, partly because I just didn't want to face the world, mostly because I was so embarrassed about whatever I'd said to Mum that I don't even remember, quite frankly. And I just couldn't understand what had happened. It was like a switch had been flicked, and I became this horrific person, and I have no memory of it, which is it's horrible, right? So about 4 days later, I surfaced and had to face Mum, obviously. Oh, that was horrible. I still feel that in my chest. It was like, I don't know what to say because I don't know what I did. How do I make this better? And although Mum and I love each other, we don't have a kind of traditional mother-daughter relationship, if you like. We find it hard to share things with each other. So it was a bit awkward trying to talk about it. And just the way our natures are, it almost became not a confrontation, but just a really difficult conversation. And I think that was when I realized that I can't live like this. We have to share a house. We can't go about kind of ignoring each other and hating each other, and all this embarrassment of me not really knowing what had happened. I thought I must be having another bout of depression. So I went back to the doctor, and the lovely doctor said, yes, but you haven't been taking your HRT. And I said, oh, HRT? I'd actually forgotten completely. And I hadn't had it for almost a year by this point. So thankfully, there were stocks, and I was put back on it, which was amazing. So within maybe a couple of months, things really started to feel better. I knew I now wanted to do something with my life rather than hide away. Still didn't know what exactly, but there was a huge change in just the space of a couple of months from having this HRT. There's another problem comes along with that afterwards, but that's another year away. So I kind of sat back and thought, right, I know I cannot go back into corporate. I just cannot go back into that rigidity. Like you say, the freedom it's second to none in whatever form that is for you as a person. When you have your wings clipped, it's really not pleasant. So that was just not an option. And I decided I need to have my own business. What can I do? I'm really good at social media. Let's train people how to use social media. Lo and behold, I was offered a free training on how to build an online course. Okay, I can do that. I can do a course for teaching people how to use social media. Then when I took that course, I was then offered a coaching program from the same people. I don't really want to be a coach. I don't think I'd be a very good coach. No, I'll do it anyway, but it's not really my thing. Turns out it really was my thing. And it really has changed my life, knowing that I can use what I have been through to help someone else who's stuck in it right now. And that is how I have gotten into what I do now, with many other kind of side routes along the way. But coaching is my passion. Coaching menopausal women is absolutely my life's purpose, if you like, because as you said already, no one should get to the point where they don't want to wake up anymore. That's just not acceptable. It really isn't. And it was for no other reason than I hadn't had the correct treatment and support. And I'm not medically trained, so there's only so much level of support I can provide, but I can provide my story. I can provide my own experience, the emotions, the empathy. And that is where I'm at. I get so emotional thinking about anyone else who's gone through or is going through anything like I have, just to know there's someone there to hold your hand. Or to just explain what the hell is going on with your body.
Yeah, and it makes a massive difference. It makes a massive difference. And I just don't think it matters how many people there are doing the same thing, because there's somebody for everyone. There's I don't know how many 3 billion women in this whole world, they're all going to go through perimenopause. There's a lot of people who need support, and the more people who do it, the better. But the thing is, Debs, that was not the end of your story, was it?
No.
I mean, as if you hadn't had already been through a huge amount. There is more, and it all is based around your HRT. So maybe you could share with us what then happened.
Yeah, of course. And I do tell a lot of women about this because it has become so important to me that women are aware. When I was given that second lot of HRT, the ones that literally saved my life, what I didn't know was it was also potentially killing me. And that sounds quite extreme, but it could have, because I was given estrogen only. Now that's fine if you don't have your womb. But when you have estrogen on its own and you still have your womb, your endometrium, which is the lining of your womb, thickens and thickens and thickens and thickens. Then you're supposed to have progesterone, which you have naturally anyway, but that's one of the hormones that's declining in perimenopause. So if you don't have enough of that, there's nothing to combat this thickening of your lining. I had that for a year. So my endometrium was growing all this time. I had no idea I was only on estrogen. I didn't know there was different hormones. I just thought it's HRT. I thought it was all the same, right?
So the doctor just gave you this, and as we do, we all just trust the doctors, don't we? We go, right, the doctor obviously knows best.
Exactly.
And that's that. I mean, the doctor obviously didn't know any different either. I mean,
No,
that's what they thought was okay, which is
exactly.
properly outrageous.
Yeah. And, I don't know how it happened because obviously, well, they must have known I still had my womb. There's no record of it ever not being there. But he didn't even ask the question. He just gave me a prescription. And I wonder if what had happened was when I was trying to get alternative HRT the year before, they'd taken me from the combined patch to a separate patch and pill. And I think he's just seen the first on, the most recent one on the list and going, oh, yeah, she's had that before, we'll give her that, and not really registered. He's not had the knowledge to know that was estrogen only. And I also need progesterone. So, yes, technically his fault, but also the fault of the system. Because why did he not know?
Yeah.
Why is he not trained enough to know that immediately you have estrogen, you need progesterone if you still have all your inside bits?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And of course, as you say, I trusted, took what I was given, blissfully unaware for a whole year, feeling great, by the way. And a year later, so another year after that, this would now be 21, February 21 was when I went back on this estrogen. January last year, so 22, I'm postmenopausal by this point. I haven't had a bleed for over 2 years. Suddenly, I had a bleed, and it lasted 3 weeks. And I, whoa, this is not good. What is this? And it was pretty uncomfortable. I've never had period pains my whole life. This was really uncomfortable, like burning, tense, nagging feeling, and just this constant bleeding. What? Why is it lasting 3 weeks? So I went to the doctor, obviously, and it was only then that they realised I was having estrogen only. And the bleeding was as a result of my womb going, hang on, there's far too much lining in here. We need to get rid of this somehow. So let's flush it out.
God, so your body, it shows your body eventually works it out, doesn't it? Kind of.
Yeah, but it wasn't a menstrual bleed, so it's a very different thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's dangerous, isn't it?
It
It's very,
is.
very dangerous.
If it goes untreated, it can lead to cancer. It doesn't every time, but my cells did at some point change to be precancerous, and just even that alone was like, whoa, that's scary. I don't want to be anything cancerous, never mind whatever, just no, this is not good. So I was put back onto progesterone straight away, but we're not done yet. I was given Utrogestan, which in normal circumstances is the best, safest form of progesterone you can take. Not if you already have a thickened womb lining, because it will not have any effect on that. It just keeps you ticking over at the right level.
Right.
But it almost isn't strong enough, if you like, to start combating the buildup. Nobody told me that either. So I'm happily now taking both estrogen and progesterone, and I'm thinking this is great. I'm back to normal. Still kept bleeding. Since that first bleed, I have had about 6 further bleeds, at least 3 weeks long. Currently, I'm having one that's gone on for over 2 months. Previous ones got so bad that I had to call ambulances to take me to the hospital. The pain was incredible. Flooding, which, it's not a nice topic, right? But it needs to be out there. Nothing was keeping it in, if you like. It was just this constant flow and big, thick clumps, because obviously that's my lining coming away, and really scary. To be in so much pain that I've never had to call an ambulance in my life for myself.
Yeah, that is so scary. I mean, did they not think that actually it would be better to go and have some of that lining removed? Have you ever had any of that?
Nope, it was never suggested. And still at this point, after 1, 2, 3 bleeds, it took the third bleed for somebody to say, "Oh, but you're on the wrong progesterone. That's not really going to help you." Okay, what do I need then? So I've been given Provera now, which is a synthetic. So it's obviously not quite as safe as Utrogestan, but it is stronger, and it is now reversing the damage that has been done. But as I say, my cells went precancerous. I have had numerous scans, biopsies, which are excruciatingly painful, and just lots of stress, waiting for results, hoping it's not going to get worse, all of this. And I'm still in that place now. But I have come to the point where I'm done with it. I've made a decision that I'm now going to progress a hysterectomy. Because I think I said at the beginning, I'm not emotionally attached to any of that. I don't have children. I've never wanted children. So for me, it's a no-brainer of a question, right? Yes, it's very traumatic surgery. There's a long recovery, but I can't keep going through what I'm going through now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awful that you've kind of ended up at this place, having been through everything you've been through. And I suppose that has driven you to make this decision quite an easy one for you, that actually it has to be better than what you are currently experiencing. And I imagine now that you are going to make sure that you know exactly what will be happening, the right sort of HRT and everything that you need to take post hysterectomy. And I mean, is that a dead cert? Have you got that booked in? Is it going to definitely happen, or are you pushing for it?
When I was offered, I was given options when they discovered the thickened endometrium. One of which was to take this other progesterone. Mm-hmm. One of which was to have the Mirena coil. Now, I know lots of people have great results from it, more so than those that don't. So, it obviously works. But for me, I just never wanted something inside me permanently. That the thought of that just doesn't sit right with me. So that was never going to be an option for me. And the third option was a hysterectomy. So it was already offered to me when they first found this out. But I've been trying the pills just to see, because obviously hysterectomy is a big thing, right? You don't just want to go and get one for the sake of it.
Yeah, it's a very major operation. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But the pills are, they're only working so much. If I'm even a few hours late taking these pills, another bleed will start. Mm-hmm. It's so unpredictable. And obviously there's still something there that doesn't want to be there, right? So for me, yes, it just was a no-brainer. And I've spoken to a number of people who've had the operation who say it's the best thing they've ever done. So let's hope it's the same for me. But I still have to, I'm supposed to have a consultation, which has been postponed 3 times. Yeah. So we'll get there eventually.
Oh my gosh, well, Debs, it's been a real journey, and I do wish you all the best for this.
Thank you.
And really hope, that you get it sorted, and that you will. I know you will come out the other side. You will come out stronger, and your experience, I know you're going to put to good use and help others who've experienced similar things, because no one should have had to experience all of what you have. I mean, that is a lot for anybody to go through. So
what it is, Polly, but I speak to so many women now, obviously, through the course of my job and on social media, and it's appalling how many women have gone through worse than that.
Yeah.
I think, how is that not bad enough, what I've been through, that other women have even worse situations?
Do you know what it really highlights to me? And I did a podcast episode on this. It really highlights how important it is that we as women empower ourselves with the knowledge, with the tools, with everything we need to navigate this whole process, this whole experience as best we can. I think for so many years, it was always doctors know best, and we trusted the doctors. But I think we're coming to realise that, in particular when it comes down to menopause, perimenopause, women's health, they have not necessarily had the training. Menopause, as we know, isn't a mandatory part. I think they get an hour, and then you can
Mm.
choose to specialize a little bit further. But it's not. They don't get a huge amount of training. And I'm not doctor bashing here. I know they
No.
do the best they possibly can. They're general practitioners, and they have to know a lot about a lot. Well, so sometimes they know a little about a lot.
Yeah.
And that is why it's important to either see some specialist, someone who specializes in menopause, or you see someone, a menopause coach, because actually they probably know a lot more than a doctor. But best of all, you empower yourself. You get that knowledge yourself, and that it really does give you back that control, so you understand what it is you could be taking. Also, not just on the HRT front, but just all the other health and wellness things that we can be doing to support ourselves and our health as we go forward.
For sure. And do you know what? That is really important. But I think that's only really been possible in the last few years, because there weren't resources available. We wouldn't have even known, like I didn't, to think about menopause when you're in your 30s and 40s. But I think women in their 20s need to know this stuff, and even younger potentially, because you can have menopause in your teens if you're extremely unlucky. It does happen. It's rare, but it happens, and it happens in your 20s. It happens in your 30s. And you need to know about this as early as possible so that you can do this research and know exactly what route you want to take with it, whether you want HRT or not. But as you say, all the other things that are so important now, that more so than ever before in your life, your fitness, your nutrition, your mental health, look after yourself. But you can't do that unless you know that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you only know what you know.
Yeah, and we haven't known for so many years. And the majority of medical research up until very recently was only ever done on men, because men were stable. They could provide a more stable set of results than women because of our hormones, right? So they could take 10 women and do the test and get a whole load of different results. So you couldn't rely on women for medical research. It was always men, and it's always been men that were in the medical profession from hundreds of years ago. We're slowly coming out of that now, but it's been a slog. But I do believe, and this is Diane Danzebrink and Carolyn Harris's kind of mantra, that we will be the last generation to struggle with menopause.
Yeah.
And as much as it's been difficult, I'm proud of that, because if I can be part of eliminating all this mystery and fear and shame and embarrassment around it, that's something worthwhile, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love that. It really is. And I think, we're doing a great job here in the UK generally. I think there's still obviously more work to be done. And particularly around the rest of the world, there's a huge amount more to be done, I know. But yeah, stories like yours and, now the work that you do is just hugely, hugely important. Debs, because this is called the Positive Perimenopause Podcast, I ask all my guests at the end if you could give the listeners just one practical tip which they can actually implement today to help them to have a more positive perimenopause. What might you suggest?
For me, I'm all about positivity and confidence now, and it's only come as a result of knowing what's going on. So what I would say to women is, the second you notice a difference in your life, go ask someone about it. Get on social media, talk to your best friend, lose the embarrassment, because there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And actually, this period of life, in so many ways, is life-changing in a good way, because it changes your attitude. I've become a much braver, bolder person as a result. And I think that if you can hold that throughout your journey, if you just know that at some point you will come out the other side. Keep hold of this vision of what's to come. And it's not nearly so daunting, because it can be, like I said at the very start, I'm living my best life so far. And there's more to come. I can't believe I'm saying that now, just 3 years after, well, not even 3 years, 2.5 years since I didn't want to wake up anymore. It's a huge leap, but it's possible for everyone if you have the right support, the right information.
Yeah, nobody needs to struggle through it. And if anybody listening is feeling like they are struggling, our invitation is do just reach out, contact somebody, whether it's me, whether it's Debs, whether it's a friend, whether it's anybody. You don't need to suffer. There is so many things which we can do to help and turn it around, and we're both examples of that. Yeah, and turning it to even better than before, living our best lives. And I think that's the beauty of it, realizing that actually midlife is pretty bloody good and it's amazing. Yes. There are so many opportunities for us.
Yeah. The sooner you can accept, I think, the acceptance is a huge part of this. Mm-hmm. The sooner you accept that this is inevitable, it's going to happen to you at some point, then the sooner you can get the support you need and the sooner you can get to the good stuff. It doesn't have to go on for 10 years of misery like I've pretty much had and like most women have had up until now.
I know. I think the tricky thing is that so many women feel like that's just part of it, is to struggle on. And we let things get so bad before we actually do anything about it. And I agree, we've got to somehow get this message through to everybody. You don't need to let it get that bad. Actually, you can prevent it from getting that bad by taking action now. That is the difficult message to get through to people, because by human nature, I think some of us don't do anything until we absolutely have to. Debs, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your story with us. And I am sure it is going to inspire others and help others. If anybody wants to find out more about you, to go and work with you, tell us how they can get hold of you.
Okay, so I am Menodebs everywhere. I'm on all social media platforms, Instagram mostly. So it's Menodebs, Menodebs. And my website is menodebs.co.uk. So come find me, have a chat. And if I can help you, I would be delighted to.
Thank you so much. Take great care of yourself and good luck with all that is to come. And keep us posted.
Thanks so much, Polly. It's been a pleasure and good luck with your podcast.
Thank you. I think there's just one great big highlight for today's episode, and that is one of education. Education is key when it comes to perimenopause and menopause. The more you know, the better. Know what the symptoms are so you can recognize them if they occur. Know what treatment options there are available to you and how diet and lifestyle can support you during perimenopause and menopause. Know what treatment you're receiving and just be sure to ask questions. Know that there is so much support out there available to you. I hope that you have found this episode useful, inspiring. Perhaps it might motivate you to find out a little bit more about something you're taking or the treatment options available to you. Remember, if you need some extra support or if you've just got any questions at all, please do feel free to email me info@pollywarren.com. Or you can always come over to Instagram @PollyWarrenCoaching and send me a message there. I will put all of Deb's details in the show notes in case you would like to get in touch with her as well. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. And I'd be so grateful of one small favour from you if you are still here with me. If you could click that like and subscribe button on the platform that you listen to your podcasts, that would just be unbelievably helpful because it really helps get this podcast out there. And if you'd like to leave me a review, you can do that on Apple Podcasts. It can be a bit fiddly, but if you can do that, again, I'd be so grateful. It really does help me so much. And also, I just love to hear your thoughts about the podcast. Have a wonderful week. Take loads and loads of care of yourself, and I cannot wait to speak to you next time. Lots of love. Bye.